this against me, but I'm a trombone player. And in college, when I was in the very first repair shop I ever worked for, we had this wonderful lady walk into the shop who had her husband's trombone. He had unfortunately just passed away, and she was looking for a good home for this trombone. And she happened to have an old Superbone. Now, if you're not a trombone player and don't understand, those old Superbones are tiny little pea shooter horns that have this fantastic slide, and it's a remarkable little jazz horn. I was drooling and got looking at this horn and saying, yeah, I'm sure we could find somebody for this. And she smiled and said, would you like this horn? And I said, well, I don't want to take advantage of being here. She said, that's exactly why I came here, is to find someone that would know what this is and could take care of it. And I've had that horn now for 30 years and love playing that horn. Well, just the other day, I was shown an old recording trombone, which is what I've got on the bench today. And the cool thing about the recording trombones and the Superbones, so both made by Olds, was the slide. Their bells are fantastic, and the recording bell is a little bit larger, a little bit warmer sound quality, where the Superbone's tiny and bright. The thing that's so special about both the Superbone and the recording trombone is the slide. They are manufactured in a different way than any other trombone slide that's out there. They actually have these flat sides to the inside of the slide tube. Let me show you. This is the inside of the slide tube, and if I can catch the light on this just right, you can see that there are flat sides to this tube. Down here at the stocking, the very bottom of the horn, it's still perfectly smooth, just like anything else. But as soon as we come up here past the stocking, these are all perfectly flat, and there's lots and lots of flat sides to this round tube. The reason those flat sides are there is to help the tube stay straight. Over time, when we're using our horns, the tubes will bend, whether we grabbed it wrong or dented it or just it's suffering under gravity over time. Those flat slides or flat aspects to the inside slide help make that slide stay really straight. Love, love, love these horns, love these slides. Well, this one has a big old fat dent in it, and the dent that went through the outside slide got into the inside slide. Now on the outside slide, it's no big deal. These are a perfectly round tube, and I can take the dent out of this one and basically make it disappear. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm really worried about this, because all of the mandrels that we have are made for round tubes. So when I'm trying to take the dents out of this one, it's going to be a real big fat trick. So luckily, we only have one spot right here that we've got this dent, but unfortunately, it is across several aspects, to over at least 5 aspects, flat aspects of this slide, and getting that dent out, it's going to be a trick. So here's hoping that I can blow some life back into this super fantastic trombone. The first thing that we're going to do to get these dents out is get the horn really clean. Unless the slide is perfectly clean, I'm not going to be able to get a really good rebound or a perfectly flat surface again, because whatever's in there will appear through the brass and kind of the indentation. Think Sylvester's running into the frying pan that the mouse swung at his face. So if we get the slide clean, then we've got a much better choice. So we're going to start with the flex hone, and it requires some oil and some soap inside there to act as a lubricant. And then we're going to use this straight rod with some swabbing material to wipe all of that out and make sure we've got a perfectly clean surface on both the inside and the outside slide. So when I look down the inside slide, now that it's clean and we know that we're looking at metal and not schmuck, you can actually see the dent inside the slide. And it actually looks worse than I thought it was. We've got not one, but probably 3 or 4 dents in a line up and down here that we need to go address. I think I know how. I've got an idea of how I'm going to do it at least. I just hope it works. One of the products we use in our shop that we really like are these HP Brass Savers trombone slide cleaners. Instead of just trying to clean the crook here with one of those little tiny brushes that frankly doesn't do a whole lot, it scrapes a little bit of stuff out, but it doesn't really wipe. That's what these guys are for. This guy is a big fat fuzzy brush that's long and does a really good job of wiping things out. Has this really long lead that we put all the way down and then back up the outside slide and gets everything out. Show you how. So I dip this in water and my soap solution so I can pull that through. These things are fantastic. Now that I've got the horn clean, it's time to start trying to take the dent out of this inside slide. And I'm going to start with this because if I can't get that out, it's not worth doing any of the rest. So we're going to start here. Typically what I would do is I would find the appropriate size mandrel that would fit inside of this and fill up the entire tube. And it's a steel mandrel that we've got sitting over here. And then I would start by what's called rebounding, using a metal hammer to actually hit the dent, to bounce it against the steel, and that makes the dent bounce back up and it makes it bounce straight. And that's a really effective way to get the majority of the dent out. And then we use rollers to roll the tube perfectly smooth. Well, because this one has flat slides, we can't use rollers. And because my mandrel inside of it is round, the hammer may actually cause more damage and flatten more of that surface out than what's there. So instead what I'm going to try to do is I've got a mandrel that's got a little bit of a bead on the end of it that will actually help me push the dents back up from the inside. Kind of like what we do in a trumpet bell or trombone bell, where we're trying to push the dent up from the inside to make it smooth. We're going to try that on this and see what happens. One of the problems is we're pushing on a tube that is chrome plated, and the chrome is really hard. So I'm hoping that I can focus the pressure of that dent rod in the right spot to do just what we need and hopefully get it up just high enough and not overdo it. So sometimes we got a perfectly flat tube, it gets dented like this. When we push that, it's possible to push it too far, and now we've got a ridge, and that actually causes a bigger problem on a trombone slide than a dent does. And normally it's no big deal, you roll it out, but in this case, we can't roll it out. Here's hoping. Well, that's not going to work because the tool itself is actually wider in diameter than these skinny little slides. And these are small slides, but darn. So the first thought I had was to modify the tool and actually grind off the bottom part of that. But the shaft of that rod is also bigger than this, so that's not going to work at all. So we're going to end up having to try this the way I didn't want to, which is on the mandrel that fits up inside of there and rebounding it out with a hammer. It's the only choice I've got. So we're gonna give it a shot. The hammer I'm gonna use on this one is just a small metal hammer. I've got Teflon that I use to cover the top of this, otherwise the hammer leaves a mark. But with this Teflon on like this, it does a really good job of not damaging the tube as I hit it. The reason I put a magnet out here is that shows me where the end of my rod is. So my rod only extends up this far. The reason being is there's a venturi tube that's inserted inside of here. So it's another tube that goes down inside the trombone that actually ends up right there. So I can't go up any further. And this shows me where the end of the slide is. So if I ever do anything out here, that would be catastrophic to the tube. So I want to make sure I focus everything below this. I normally want to use a glancing blow to where I'm coming off, but because of these flat slides, I can notice right away that the glancing blows I was doing is actually taking those edges out. So I'm trying to land right on that aspect and get it to just bounce back up. The moment of truth then is to measure with the calipers and see how close we really are. So let's see. 5135, 5135 on both sides of it. So on the other side, so I'm not at the dent yet, I'm just on the sides of the dent. I'm actually at 5155, so I've actually grown just a little bit, but it's still within tolerances. So now I'm going to roll around to the dent itself. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. So I'm going to keep going on some of the rest of the dents that I have in here and see if I can make any other improvements without making it worse. Well, I'm happy enough already with the improvements, I guess, let's call it that. Then I'm going to go ahead and push forward onto the outside slide and see if we can revive this slide entirely. The outside slide is obviously bigger than the inside slide, so it requires another mandrel that's actually a little bit larger. You can definitely feel those dents in that one. Now this tool is the roller, and because of the age of these tubes and the condition on the outside, I've got to be fairly light with this pressure. But this just puts a last burnish on all of that dent work I just did. It makes everything nice and round again for me. The plastic wheel leaves just a little bit of a mark that we'll clean off here in just a minute. You've got to be careful not to go past the increasing of sizes in these outside slides. And this final pass, I've got really light pressure on here. Next thing we're worried about is removing any of the marks that we had on the outside and getting ourselves back to some clean tubes. So I'm just going to give them a quick wipe down with the rag. And this is the point where most people think, hey, we're ready to put these in, but we're actually a long ways from it. We've got the dents taken care of, we think. And the next thing to worry about is that we have perfectly straight tubes. And there's a couple different ways to do this. My favorite way, my preferred method, is by sight, where we actually look down the tubes to see if we've got them straight. But before we do on this one, we've got to worry about this crook. So this crook, the bumper on this has been dented in and has a few other dents in the crook itself. So we've got to remove those because the process of removing those may actually bend the tube a little bit, and even if it's not, that dent crook is moving these tubes from being in line with themselves. So we've got to remove the dent first. I'm going to try to do it with the crook on. If not, I'll take the crook off and see if we can get that out. And then continue on to straightening the slides. So to get these dents out of the crook, we use a series of graduated dent balls. So each of these gets a little bit bigger. And I'll put a small one on and then a bigger one on. And these are what we use to push it around the corner. And then this little brass guy that unscrews is what we use to pull those back out and make sure they don't get lost in the tube. So because I got those through, I'm going to take these off. I know I got that one through, so I'm going to want a slightly larger one to lead the way, and then a slightly bigger one than that to lift it up. Tighter.
Yep. It was personal.
See how you are.
What?
I see how you are.
Just gotta keep you on your toes, you know.
Working.
Okay.
What I'm doing right here is I'm using a magnet, a really powerful earth magnet, on the other side, and we're doing a process called rebounding, where we actually, by striking the magnet, we're putting some energy in that's going to get reflected by that ball, and that ball is going to come back toward us, and it's actually going to lift up some of these small dents that we've got in here. It's kind of cool. Yep, that's on top. Those two, 1 second. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sight down these tubes, looking out to the light and looking for any curves. And when we see the curve, we're going to take that curve out of the horn by putting it up against our bench and bending it, quite frankly. We're going to do the exact same thing with the inside slide as well. Slide down them, get them straight, and then finally that we've got all the dents out and we've got the tube straight and we've got the crook taken care of, then will be the first chance we use to put them back together, see how we're doing. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's see what happens. Tell you what, that's perfectly dry too. I'm not feeling stocking catch. I'm pretty pleased with that. Got a little bit of bending still on this bottom slide that I want to get rid of. But all in all, the gooseneck's not bad. That's going to be a salvageable trombone. And that's thrilling to me that I'll be able to put these final touches on the slide and get this thing just dialed right in. And that dent in that flat-edged inside slide was able to come up enough to where we can make this horn playable again, and someone's going to have a fantastic trombone for years to come.